right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are here today with Dave Hansen with ClientTether, and we're privileged to have him with us. I think he'll provide some great knowledge and resources. And I'll just let Dave, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do and your hobbies and all that.
Sure. We'll start with hobbies because that's probably the most interesting part of what I do. I'm kidding. I
Yeah.
know, love. So I grew up in Illinois, live in Utah now. That's how you and I met each other, as it turns out. But we, I, I run a company called ClientTether, and we're a sales automation CRM platform for franchising. Probably a little bit more on that later, but I love all sorts of stuff. We live here in Utah, so I love being outside, hiking, fishing, camping, rock hounding, mineral collecting, fossil collecting, stuff like that is another one of my weird hobbies. But I coach baseball. That takes up most of my time in the summer and fall. And my boys are getting older now. They're 18U, so pretty competitive, super fun baseball. So those I got a family, 4 kids, 16-year-old, 15-year-old, then twins that are 12.
Wow. Wow. Well, you obviously are very, very busy. So, well, thank you. So like you had mentioned, your company, runs a CRM platform, and you'd mentioned particularly for franchises. And so we'll dive into, the franchise aspect of it. Feel free to some of our listeners will be non-franchise related. So feel free to just focus on franchising or mix in some just general CRM stuff. So first question that most people are probably wanting to know, like, if I'm a business owner uh, or an executive, or if I'm a franchise owner, particularly franchisor, what should I be looking for in a CRM?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're starting with that. That's a great place. There are a lot of CRMs out there. When I first started working in sales, well, my first sales job, I was 5 and self-employed, no CRM whatsoever. But first professional jobs, like I've worked in about every major CRM you'd want to play in. It depends on what you're doing. As I got further into managing sales teams and companies, I started to realize that there are specific CRMs for specific industries, and there are certain things that different groups of people and different companies need out of a CRM. It's really morphed into a very niche place, and so I think fit is probably where I would start the discussion, and I'll break it down a little bit because sales flow in different industries is completely unique. For example, almost every CRM out there, Salesforce, HubSpot, Infusionsoft, um, Zoho, a whole bunch of them. Most of the common ones that you've heard of, Sugar CRM, they were all designed for enterprise software sales. They modeled themselves after the Salesforce model that was working so well. And what that means is they expect you to have a hyper complex sales cycle with multiple stakeholders, multiple contacts across multiple units in one large account. That's how they were designed. Well, the sad part about that is if you're in an industry, and let's say franchising, and you want a CRM, that data model doesn't work at all. In fact, it completely breaks when you're trying to have a multi-unit sub-account parent-child relationship in the data. They try to cobble that together with baling wire and chewing gum and duct tape with rules and territory management, stuff like that. But there are a lot of real rough limitations to it and major expenses, like $50 to $150,000 of setup fees, depending upon which platform you decide to go with if you're in franchising, or another multi-unit like a dealership model or something like that, where these platforms just aren't designed to manage the data for that type of an industry. But more importantly, the sales cycles are completely unique. And so let's say I'm running a home service business, which is an area that we specialize in, right? That was what our platform was designed for, franchising and home service businesses. But um, your lead is your contact, is your opportunity, is your account, right? But if you were in Salesforce or one of these other platforms I mentioned, you'd have to have 4 different data objects that complicate your user interface and make it hard to manage the data, so that your franchisees or your dealers or just you and your home service business can manage the flow of data in the CRM and get the most out of it. It makes it too complex. So those are some of the key things I'd be looking at in CRMs if I were trying to determine what's the right direction for me to go. Is what type of a sales process do I have? What type of tools do I need? And then is the CRM I'm looking at the right fit for me?
Okay, great. Um, okay, so you had talked about like the differences with how franchising lends to a different type of CRM, because we don't have all these different types of I think you're saying platforms and different areas of going forward. So what are some of the common challenges with the CRM in franchising?
Oh yeah, there there are a lot. There are a lot. I mean, part of it is the data model that I was just kind of alluding to. That franchising is unique. Franchising, multi-unit dealers, any sort of business model like that, even multi-location businesses. Um, the data structure itself is kind of backwards in most CRMs for them. But there are a lot of other things. Licensing and cost structures are really unique. The user interface alone. I had a guy laughing with me on a call the other day and telling me, "Oh, you mean the medical record management tools?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, most CRMs. And I realized he's exactly right. Like just the complexity of the user interface. So if I want to call somebody out of a CRM, and most of them can't do that. They don't have integrated telephony or texting. If I do text a client, I've got to then find a place to log a call and then manually put in notes that I sent somebody a text. Like these are some of the challenges, not just in franchising, but in general, taking a step back, that many CRMs have, which is they're really just expensive record keeping and reporting tools that were designed for executives. They're not productivity tools that were designed for an individual business owner or an individual salesperson to actually become more effective. For them, their effort to multiply itself because of the tool. It's actually it sucks the life out of salespeople. So, I mean, this is just a general challenge with a lot of CRMs that I've worked in. Siebel CRM, Dynamics, Salesforce, most of the ones that I've used, Goldmine, Act. If you go back many years in my CRM history, some of them just weren't designed to make the salespeople more effective or the business owners more effective. So they didn't help the businesses to grow. They just made it so executives could pull data and see what people were doing.
So let me ask you a question, and maybe I should have started with this in terms of like, because some people will know, some people won't. But tell me what in very like non non-nerd language, not that you're nerdy, but just very plain English. What is a CRM, and why do I need one if I'm a
Oh,
business owner?
sure. Yeah, let's step back. So a CRM is just a record management system. It's a customer record management system. And so at a real base level, it's a place where you can keep track of your customer engagement and leads that come in and customers that leave and deals that you're managing and closing. It's really to keep your eye on the ball, because sales are the lifeblood of every business, even nonprofits. So they don't report it the same way. And so if you're not keeping your eye on that ball and making sure you're getting as much out of your marketing investment of leads that are coming in, and making sure that you're getting the most out of the customers that start to buy from you and maybe cross sell, then you're really not going to succeed as a business. So a CRM is a core function of every business's technology requirement. Doesn't matter if you're a carpet cleaner or a dental office, you need to have some sort of a client record management system. And I forgot this. What was the second part of your question? Because I want to make sure I cover both parts of
Oh, I
it.
mean, it's why do I need one? Why do I need a CRM?
I mean, well, I guess I sort of answered that, but it's really if you're not actively managing and analyzing what's happening to leads and how high quality they are and how many of them are closing and how your team's performing through a CRM, then you're not going to be able to grow and perform the way you should. You won't get the ROI out of your investment in your business that you should.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Like I said, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, well, I need to ask these questions too. I mean, what are some of the new trends driving innovation in the CRM industry?
Oh yeah. Well, in fact, maybe before we jump into that, there are a couple other thoughts on like common challenges with CRMs and franchising. You okay if I jump back into that
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
second?
yeah, for sure.
We'll plow forward with the trends. So I mentioned the data is just all broken on the back end for most other CRMs because they can't support the parent-child. Also in franchising, franchise development, there are a couple of real challenges in like franchise broker groups. They manage multiple brands, and they have. If you ever have the same lead come in, like let's say Dave Hansen wants to buy a franchise, I'm looking at one brand that they're managing, and then end up filling out a form and looking at another brand that they're managing. any other data, any other CRM is going to deduplicate that contact immediately, and I can't be looking at two different brands in the franchise broker process. Their data architecture just won't allow it. So some really weird nuances people don't realize that are major limitations to where these other CRMs are designed. But that's one of the biggest and most expensive ones. That's why people have to pay so much to use the big label CRMs in franchising, sometimes 6-7 figures to get them to actually work for their business model. The other challenges they've got are licensing. So I haven't run across another CRM that isn't a per user license model. That's not how we license. We license a location because we were designed for franchising. The challenges there are, let's say I'm a franchise owner and I'm just getting started. So it's just me and my cousin Vinny and my wife and one employee. I've got to have 4 licenses and pay for 4 licenses of a CRM to be able to use it. Well, as I grow, that might double. So now my CRM costs double over time just because I want more people to interact with it and use this tool. It's a core part of running my business. Like most CRMs, if they're worth anything, you can run your business out of them. And so to have the guy in accounting to log in and pull a report, and I've got to pay $30 to $75 a month just for him to have access to that. It's a little crazy. And if I'm a franchisor providing this tool, well, my cost can exponentially mushroom if I use a license model that's based on per user. So that's another challenge with them, is that they weren't designed for franchising and even the license model. And 2 other areas, the data limitations that they have also they make it so you can't pull reports and have visibility into what's happening at the franchisee level. Let's say, for example, a lot of franchisors, they're spending a ton of money developing high quality leads, and then they're passing those right down to their franchisees so they can follow up at a local level, have a higher level of engagement. Well, we'll talk about automation in a minute too, but they don't have visibility to see what happens to those leads after they hand them off. Sometimes they can get some ancillary reports, but they're just because of the limitations of the data structure, they don't really know. All they can tell is how many closes or how much maybe revenue happened at that location. They can't track it all the way through to see how their leads are progressing. And if one location is better at setting up appointments than another one that's better at closing deals, they have no idea. So there's real limitations in the way they can visualize and track the data and performance. And last thought is it's just modularity. A lot of the CRMs are following the platform model that Salesforce created, and they made a lot of money doing it, but they stripped functionality out of their platform, and then you have to add on the things that you want. So you want effective workflows, that's an add-on. You want to have calling or texting, those are 2 different add-ons. You want to have proposal management, it's a very expensive add-on in some platforms. So the modularity and the complexity of even Zoho, they talk about, we've got 50 apps in Zoho One. You're gonna have to get a systems integrator, one of their partners, to tie them all together and make them work. So it's a real expensive setup because of how most of the CRMs are modularized too.
Interesting. Okay. And so in terms of like technology trends, like where do you see the industry going?
Well, unfortunately, modularizing things has become the trend, which is one reason why we don't do that. This is not a promotion about us, but I just hate it, honestly. Like you go buy a car, and even like a Tesla, like, oh, you want your car to be faster? You just buy this $2,500 software upgrade, and we'll allow your car to be faster. That's kind of how CRMs work too. And I love Teslas, but I think it's a little bit weird. They don't just come out of the factory optimized. But that's one challenge. But some trends of directions I'm seeing people move are omni-channel communication. And to break that down into simple terms, being able to not just email from a platform, or not just make it a record keeping tool, but make it a communication tool, so that I can actually provide effective communication out of one platform, rather than I go to my CRM to look up a number and then I dial it in my phone. Now people are trying to add more and more communication functionality to the platform, so it's a one-stop shop. As an example, in the ClientTether platform, you can text, you can call, you can send an email, you can schedule those things to happen whenever you want. They can become part of automation sequences. I can send a box of brownies in the mail or a postcard. Like, having multiple communication channels that you manage out of one platform is becoming more of a trend. Most people are doing email. Some people have been able to get calling attached to their CRM. Most can't do texting or any sort of like direct mailing, but those are modules you can add on because they're seeing a need in the marketplace to make it kind of a one-stop communication hub.
Okay, very cool. And so, we talked about at the beginning saying, all right, it's you have to kind of know your needs when you pick a CRM. And so, I mean, what do you see as a common mistakes that people make when choosing a CRM or using one?
Yeah, some of these align pretty well with our with some of the trends too. I think we talked about user interface being really clunky in a lot of CRMs. That's an area where I think the industry is shifting, trying to simplify that a little bit. But people are really getting stuck on buying a brand. They want to go to the store. They need a commuter car, but they hear a lot about the Duramax diesel engine, so they go and buy a Duramax when they just need a commuter car. So tools like that I mentioned, I don't mean to speak ill of any of these platforms. They're powerful, right? Salesforce is a huge platform. It's super powerful. If I were selling pharmaceuticals, I was selling high-end systems management software, which I've done many, many years ago, I would need salesforce.com, right? But this kind of comes back to the fit discussion earlier. One of the biggest challenges that the biggest mistakes I see people make is they just go with a brand that they think they can trust, regardless of the industry, their sales cycle needs, their sales force structure, the industry needs that they've got, and they just buy into Salesforce or HubSpot or something else. And those platforms were not designed for several industries. And so even though their sales reps will tell you it'll work, you can make anything work if you spend enough money on it. But that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I see. And I mean, I've got examples of clients that we work with where they've invested, $40,000 to $50,000. I had one client who'd invested $25,000 trying to get HubSpot to work for him, and then found out that it couldn't unless he spent another $30,000 to $40,000. Another gal that I was working with, this is all in franchising, but she had spent about that much money on it, and she has to spend, I forget how many hours a month, just manicuring the data and adjusting everything so it'll work for their franchise brokerage. And it's like 30, 40 hours a month of labor they have to put into making sure that all the little wires holding everything together in HubSpot make the data work okay. It's pretty complex. I just helped a customer who'd spent over $100,000 getting Infusionsoft to work more or less for their business, and they realized that was not a good move. And so they're burning all that cash, and they're transitioning to a much more simple, streamlined platform built for their industry. So I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges, is just picking the wrong platform because you're not paying attention to what your true needs are as an organization and not getting familiarized with what else is out there.
Okay. Well, and I know you didn't want to go, you had specifically said to me, like, listen, I don't want to plug my company, but I think it's important to kind of tell our listeners and our viewers kind of what you guys do that may be different. Like why should someone consider like looking at ClientTether? Like, what do you guys do that may be different from others?
Sure, yeah. And this will actually help, I think, in our discussion about mistakes I see people make. So I'll try to frame it in that way as well. And I'll keep it brief, guys. So don't go to sleep on us. So we were designed by a serial franchisor. Started 5-star painting, 5-star franchising, and exited from that. Started another painting franchise, and decided to develop some tools that were really needed to help make his system to grow. So at our core, we were built for it and built by people who lived in the industry, which makes a huge difference. Our dev mantra, and this isn't a joke, is if a dumb painter can't use it, don't build it. And we joke around about that. We have tons of painting clients. It's just that our founder he calls himself a dumb painter. That's the joke. But the UI is materially different, the user interface. So when you log in and you're in a client profile, I can see on one screen easily, well, I can click a button and call them. I can click on a tab and text them. I can click on a tab and email them. I can click on a drop down and turn on an automation sequence that will send a text today, an email tomorrow, and make my phone ring on Thursday. And like all of that's in one simple, easy to understand, intuitive UI. We can also track the deals that you're managing with your clients. I mentioned we focus on home service, but like you don't need to have a complex table with 30 different fields to manage a deal inside of a home service entity. But we do also provide, quoting and proposal building, because even though visualizing the spend and the timeline of when that deal is going to come through is easy, and we keep it simple in our CRM, but on the back end, quoting out a painting job is not super simple. So we have a tool that helps, a painter on site, he can open up his tablet or his computer, and he can build out a quote in a couple of minutes using our tools, and then generate a proposal that looks like it was made in the back office by a nice professional proposal development team. So our tools also integrate the direct mailing tools. We integrate with one of our partners, Mailbox Power, really powerful platform where, as part of one flow, I could, as a new lead comes in, I could be taking a nap over lunch and my phone would ring, they would get a text message, they would get an email, and I could put a box of brownies in the mail for them, and I wouldn't even know until my phone rang or I got a text message letting me know I got a new lead. So we can really automate the upfront lead conversion, automate ongoing engagement. We can do online review requests and ongoing referral, retention, communication. It's very robust on the communication and the automation side. And it was built for franchising and multi-units. So you don't have to worry about a $50,000 setup just to make the data work. It's like that out of the box.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
What's that?
I just said thanks for asking.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So with just a few minutes left, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of maybe walk through what kind of things that you ask people to kind of gear them towards, like what their needs are, to say, okay, like what kind of interview do you put people through to kind of figure out what they need in terms of in their CRM?
That's a really good question. I guess the first thing I usually want to understand is what is their business model, because even though it's a carpet cleaner and I've worked with another carpet cleaner, I have found that all of our clients that are carpet cleaners have materially different processes. So as long as I understand what they're trying to accomplish and how they go about doing it and who their team members are, then it's really just an issue of helping them understand how can we not only replicate what they're trying to do in our platform, but then streamline and automate the different processes along the way. Lead engagement, I usually want to find out what types of lead sources are they managing. I mentioned we do a lot of Fran Dev. We have dozens and dozens of people that are independently buying our platform to manage their sales processes, even though their franchise networks require them to use a different CRM. They pay out of their own pocket for it because it can automate the front end. So lead source mapping, we can get any lead source to come into our platform through API, parse, or post, or even Zapier. If you're doing Facebook, social marketing, that's another trend people are trying to figure out how to tackle. We can have those leads flow right in, track the attribution, and then automate contextually relevant communications with texting, calling, emailing. That makes it really feel like a human's talking to them. So those are usually things I want to find out up front. And then what does the ongoing engagement look like? How involved are they in building quotes and proposals if they need that? So it's really kind of a discovery process to learn what parts of our platform should they be using. And then we kind of move forward from there to figure out pricing, rollout, specific needs for franchisees and training, onboarding, those sorts of things.
Great. Well, thank you. So any final thoughts, things that, we jumped around a little bit and I steered you maybe in certain directions, but any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Yeah, so purchasing a CRM is it doesn't need to be as complicated and messy as it often is. One of the things that I see a lot of people do that is a mistake, I would say, and it's easy to fix, is to evaluate how, like if I were a franchisor looking to buy a CRM, I would advise them to make sure they identify all the stakeholders who need to touch the platform. That's one mistake a lot of people make. They'll go out and then they'll buy a CRM, and then their operations team say, well, this is worthless, I can't use this. Or their technology team's like, wait, we can't touch this or integrate with this. It's going to cost us $12,000 a year just to have a license to integrate with this platform. and we've got to send one of our engineers off to training to tie our back-end tools into it. So making sure that you find the people in operations and franchise development, your franchisees, like the clients that we work with have the best rollouts. They have their FACs, their franchise advisory committees, or PACs, whatever you call it in your organization. They meet with them, show them what the capabilities are, and make sure that they buy into it. So you've got early adopters that can also help evangelize the value of the platform. And that's critical in the franchise world. They spend all this money to buy into a model that is replicable and has shown proof that it's successful, and yet they all want to do it on their own special way. So I'm sure you deal with that all the time in your world, Christian. But using a CRM and picking the right one, getting all the stakeholders aligned around that project from the beginning, including key franchisees, makes it so that you can have a successful implementation. And we've had some clients that didn't do that, and it's taken them years to get their franchisees to really adopt it. We've also had some that within 4 months have had their entire platform, their entire network using it with tremendous success and a lot of positive feedback going to the franchisor. So the process that you use to adopt is critical to making sure you really find success as you're rolling out any platform or tool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, people aren't using it, then there's, it obviously loses its value. So the more that people are adopting it and utilizing things to better their business, all the better. But okay, well, thank you, Dave. At the end of this, there's gonna be a slide that with Dave's contact information and more on ClientTether. So feel free to reach out to us if you want an introduction, or reach out to Dave individually for more questions on CRM and picking a good CRM for your business. So appreciate you, Dave. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your friendship, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks again, Christian, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay.